This here is my 67 C20 that I built back in 2020. At the time I was working for RideTech Books, writing a book on how to build and modify these trucks. This one has had pretty much all the bolt-on stuff thrown at it, from an LS swap to a TKX 5-speed to bare brakes. I shortened it. I put a short bed together for it. It was a long bed. It was actually a flat bed when I got it, a stake bed. It's also got RideTech's full coil-over suspension kit underneath it. And that's great. I love the way it sits. I love the way it rides. I love the way that it handles going around corners. But it does have one problem, and that problem is it sits so low that the tires rub the inner fender liners right here on the corner. So what do you do about that? Well, you have a couple options. The first is you just drive slower, which most people, let's be honest, are not going to do. Now, for most people, solving that problem is as simple as calling up SloshTubz and getting a set of SloshTubz sent out. And those are great. They're fiberglass, they're handmade, they're inner fender liners that sit about 2 inches, 3 inches higher than the factory setup, which gives you the clearance that you need to be static drop or even on air suspension. The problem with that, and part of the reason why I can't use them with this truck, is that the clutch master cylinder that came with the Silver Sport kit that I used in this truck, it sits this close to the factory inner liner. It is almost touching it. And if I was to put in a set of tubs that were higher all the way through, it would actually hit, and I'd have to either cut a hole in the new SloshTubz or I'd have to find a way to modify it to make it work. So that got me thinking, well, why not just modify the ones that I have? So join me as I hack on some factory fenders that really deserve better. All right, so here's the deal. You can see I've already got the fender off, and getting the fender off is pretty straightforward. It's basically take the front bumper off, get the hood out of the way, then the fender can come off. And there's bolts all the way around that you need to take a look at, including along this inner fender liner here. But once you get the fender out of the way, you can see what you're dealing with here. And in this case, I've already mapped out a square that I intend to remove. The reason I did it this way is because I can feel underneath here where the tires have been rubbing. Every time you hit a bump, it's really only in this section right through here that I've got interference problems. So what I went ahead and did, like I said, was mapped out a square, and my intention is to cut with a cutting wheel along this line all the way around, maintaining this factory piece right here so I can still bolt the fender to the fender liner the way that it would have been from the factory. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some sheet metal that's the same gauge as this factory piece and tack weld it all the way along the top here and have a piece that comes straight out and then goes straight down. And that will give me a bunch more clearance here in the corner and make more room for the tire. But before I get the cutting wheel out and make some sparks, I got to get the Camaro out of the way. All right, here's a good look at what I mean when I say this thing's rubbing. There's what it looks like on the inside. You can just see it's right there on the outer edge. But as you turn around and look on the inside, it doesn't rub anywhere. It's really just right there. Okay, I got the wheel out of the way. You can see underneath here exactly where it was rubbing. Now's a good time to cover everything up that you don't want to have grinding dust get on. Engine, you want to make sure you cover up all your glass because any of the sparks could hit the glass if they hit it. And of course anything underneath here that you don't want to have to clean up again when you're done. Okay, we've gone ahead and cleaned up all of our edges here, taken off all the sharp edges, taken off a layer of paint all the way around so that when we go to tack it, the weld will stick. The next step here is to figure out this curve and to figure out the distance that we want to go from here out. The best way to do that is with some cardboard. This right here is a piece that I made for the other side, and I'm just going to go ahead and reverse it and see how far off we are and make some adjustments as we go here to get it to sit exactly where I want it. Okay, we've got our two pieces here. This one here will go on the top. This one here follows the radius fairly well here on the bottom. Now, what I'm not worried about right now is the distance from here to here, or the amount that this sticks out, and then the height of this either. Set this up here. This we'll figure out once we have the pieces cut. We'll start at the top, get this nice and level, and we'll just work our way up to it. So next, it's time to cut out some sheet metal. All right, now, as you can see, a whole bunch of welding later, tack welding all the way around here, I've got a piece that comes straight across and straight down and makes a lot more clearance for the edge of the tire. Now you can come in here with a body hammer and push this up just a little bit, because remember, where the fender rides on this, it actually slopes down and away, so you should be able to beat this up just a little bit to make just a little bit of extra clearance if you need it. All that's left now is to make a piece for the front, a piece for the back, tack them in, seam seal it, actually tack them in, grind everything smooth, seam seal it, and paint it. That's all there is to it. So here we go. It's all boxed in, welded up. Now I just need to clean up all the welds, seam seal it, and paint it. And remember, underneath here, you want to make sure you don't have any sharp edges anywhere. So you've got to grind everything smooth. But after that, keep in mind, nobody can see this. It's underneath the fender. So how nice you make it is really up to you. It doesn't have to be perfect, but it should be nice enough that you can be proud of it. All right, let's run through the steps one more time. Mark it out on the other side. Make yourself a template out of cardboard. Then you take your cutting wheel, cut along where you had your tape lines. Clean all the edges off so you can weld to it. Cut your small sections of steel, tack them in place, and then finish it off. It's that easy. All right, a few weeks have gone by. I got my truck all back together again. A couple things to note. First is, this is a great project to take on if you're not super comfortable welding yet, mostly because everything you're doing is underneath the fender here. You can't see it. So it's a great way to practice your skills and to get better welding on sheet metal. Something else to note, you could do this by taking the inner fender liner out and doing it on the bench. I found it was easier to do it in the truck because you could measure where everything needed to be. And also, when you tend to heat up metal, it'll move around on you, and if it's already bolted to the truck, you have less chance of causing something that won't line back up when you're all done. As you can see, the truck sits pretty low, and I've gained enough clearance here, I can stick my whole hand up inside here, that speed bumps, big bumps in the road, that kind of thing, are no longer an issue with this truck at this height. So if I was to run it any lower, this wouldn't work. And I think if I hit a big enough bump, it probably would still make some contact inside here. But 90% of the problem is solved. And the nice thing about it is it didn't really cost me very much. Now, this is not necessarily going to be a replacement for something like a pair of SloshTubz. But if you're trying to do it on the cheap, or you just want to try to use what you already have, this is a good method for doing it. Now, I will say this is not my idea. I'm sure I saw somebody else do this at some point in the past, but I've never seen it spelled out in a video or in a how-to kind of section really anywhere before. And so I wanted to take the time to not only see if I could make the solution work, but also show you guys how to do it too, so that you could reproduce it yourselves and solve your own problems. So if you have any questions about this process or any of the other stuff you see on this truck, leave me a comment and ask me there, and I'll see if I can't address it either in the comments or maybe make another video. I did write 2 different books on building custom trucks, one on square bodies, and of course this one right here, which is on this truck. If you're interested in learning more about those, I'll put links to those in the description below. Thanks for watching.